Well, hello and welcome to Aging Well, January 2023. Can you believe it? I don't know. For me, it just feels like time is going by so quickly. And before I do anything else, I always have to thank our Aging Well team. Tom Roth with our CTSI, Courtney Hayes with our Wake Forest School of Medicine, and of course, Audrey Belfaro with our Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. So thanks, guys. We could not do this without you. You know, thinking about now that it's 2023, you may want to put some of your resolutions, some of your ideals for 2023 in the chat. Probably won't be able to read them on air, but your peers, we can all see them. And for me, I'm going to be more intentional about creating or really celebrating moments of joy. That's my New Year's resolution. This man at Home Depot, when he was getting something down from a high shelf for me, turned around and just, I mean, it's a man who worked at Home Depot, so I did not know him at all. And he said, "Tell me, what's the best thing that's happened to you today?" And I thought about it. And actually, the fact that we were able to recapture one of our dogs that had gotten out, the mail carrier left the fence open and we were able to get her. That was an easy answer. But you know what? Every day, I challenge y'all to think about it and think about celebrating those moments of joy. And, you know, some days it may be a little harder, but you know what? Some days it's going to be real easy for you to think about it. So that's just my little words of wisdom for 2023. I'm going to be more intentional. So anyway, so intentionally, I'm welcoming you to Aging Well. We have got a great program for you tonight. You know, I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few chefs, be in the kitchen with them, with peers, and they have their sous chefs and different people back there. And I will tell you, I will promise you this, not any in the history of Aging Well have two chefs ever had as much fun in the kitchen as our chef and our guest in the kitchen will tonight. We have two that are going to be joining us. Jonathan Seelig. He is and I'm reading because I want to make sure I get their titles correct. He is the chef and executive director of Kitchenology, which is a nonprofit teaching kitchen. And also Vincent Webb. He is a family and consumer sciences agent with the North Carolina State Extension Services. So between the two of them, they are going to take us on a tour of how Mediterranean food is so good for us, both our body and our brain.
Thanks, Deb. We're happy to be here, part of Aging Well, and excited to share this Mediterranean dish with you. And so my name is Jonathan Seelig, and I am the executive director of Kitchenology, which is a food education nonprofit, and we work with providing food education curriculum to our community. And I'm here with Vincent Webb, who is our family consumer science ag agent with a cooperative extension. And he'll be back on a little bit after we're done making the recipe, so he can talk to you a little bit more about the components and the ingredients that we have in our recipe today. Perfect. So today we have a really simple Mediterranean bowl. This is one of my favorite recipes because when you're in your busy today and you got a lot going on, what's the hardest thing, right? Is to make a quick, fresh ingredient bowl, right? So we have that today with, we're going to start with we have our rice cooking back here. So rice usually takes the longest time to make. So whenever you're making any kind of dish, you want to look at what your recipe calls for and what it takes longest to make. So that usually takes upwards to maybe 15 to 20 minutes, depending on what rice you're making. Instant rice can be a lot quicker, so that's a great option if you want to have a quicker option to make as you're, maybe needing something quickly. So there's instant rice that you can get, pop it in the microwave. It can be done for you even quicker. So we have that cooking back here right now. And then we're going to get ahead, and there's just a couple calls of some fresh ingredients that we're going to cut up. One of them is a broccoli, okay? So this is a broccoli crown is what it's called, okay? So the best way to get ahead and cut this up, the first thing you want to do is wash it, okay? Any fresh produce or any kind of food items that you have, you want to get ahead and wash that in our sink. We went and did that. But the best and easiest way to cook this is just turn it right upside down. Anytime you have any cutting element, you want to try to get it on its most flat item, basis, so it's not rolling around, so you don't have any kind of, slipping of your knife or anything of that nature. So you turn this upside down and you put your hand on the top, And all you start doing is just going around and start cutting off these little branch arms, okay? So just as simple as that, a little swipe of a knife, and as you're doing that, you're going to start breaking these up into smaller chunks, okay? And depending on how much broccoli you want, because we're not going to go ahead and use this whole thing, you can if you need it, but we can store this for another dish. So we're going to set that off to the side, and then all you're going to do is just keep going back around to these ones that you broke off, and just kind of cut them down the middle a little bit. Make them a little bit more bite-sized, okay? That's what you want to think about when you have a dish like this. And you might want to take off a little bit more of the stem that came off of the end part there. But really, like I said, you want to make this more of a bite-sized type of item so that when you're eating this and you put this in the bowl at the end, when we're mixing it all together, it's easier for you to have a piece of broccoli on your fork when you're eating this, okay? So that's the main trick to that one, is just to go ahead and turn it upside down and then go back around and cut these up into smaller bite-sized pieces. All right. And then we have our tomatoes. This is our fresh, yummy tomatoes. I like to get the ones that have a lot of different color. I like color. That makes me happy. Color has a lot of different nutrient values to it too, the different colors, right? Think about the rainbow, your food spectrum. So with these cherry tomatoes, depending on how big they are, some might be bigger than others. You can just slice them in half, just like that, be done with it. Or you can slice them into quarters, okay? So the more that you just make them, again, bite-sized, whatever that might be for you. We have an empty bowl here. All you have to do, once all these ingredients are being cut up, this is the best thing. This is what I love. One dish bowls, right? Or one pot dishes, or throw it all together, kind of mix it in. So once you have all your broccoli together, you got your tomatoes that you're cutting up, and any kind of ingredients that you have, if you can find them locally, will be the best source of nutrients that you can get. Anything that, you know, if you have a farmer's market, that's a great place to go first and try to see if you can find some of these ingredients. Hopefully they're in season, right? And so once you have these together, your farmers are amazing, highly intelligent. You'll be surprised at how much they can actually tell you about your food system, that if you went to a grocery store and you found someone there, they couldn't tell you about all the, you know, where these food ingredients might come from or how far and locally sourced they are. I love going to the farmer's market and talking to the farmers all the time, and just learning new things that I didn't know before, giving me a new idea of a recipe or a dish to make, you know, with some of the food items that they might have. So yeah, make friends with your farmers. And so, okay, so now we have some of these tomatoes all cut up. Just as you're going along, you just want to take a peek at your rice to make sure that there is anything, you know, just make sure it's not sticking. This is looking great. If anything, you might want to just mix it up a little bit. This is looking really, really good. Might have a few more minutes. And just make sure you're using proper kitchenware, right? You don't want to burn your hands. Some good mitts and stuff, right? So, all right, now that we have that, we have our garbanzo beans, so chickpeas, great source of protein, right? Legumes, they are great. Anything that you can get with legumes and put in a dish, you're just adding more nutrient protein value to you. Perfect source of protein. We can go ahead and mix those in just as they are. Okay. And then we have our nice greens. I love greens. They have so much fresh nutrient value to you, especially during the, you know, fall, winter seasons. Anything that you can get fresh into your food, into your dish, is going to build up your immune system, right? You know, just so you can stay healthy and fresh. So just get a nice handful of that, kind of mix that in there, and then you can kind of whip this around so it's becoming a nice salad, right? And we got some lemon juice, okay, that we can go ahead and add into this. So we have all this nice fresh ingredients, super healthy, super flavorful, Now, the one thing we just want to be mindful of, you can make your own dressing just as easy as going to the store and buying a dressing. And I promise you it'll be a lot cheaper and you'll get a lot more flavor out of your dressing you make at home. So we have lemon juice, right? So we're just going to go ahead and pour some lemon juice on here, all right? And then we have a little bit of olive oil. Olive oil, some nice good olive oil, kind of drizzle over. And then we have some oregano, some good herbs. This is where you're going to get a lot of your flavor, okay? Some herbs. If you're wanting seasoning to your food items, herbs are a really great way to go. So we can mix into that oregano. And here's a really important trick to know, okay? If you watch any chef, they do not have any of these grinding elements. I know we have this with pepper, but pepper's a different piece, right? So you do not have any of these for salt. They always usually put salt in their hand or in a container, and that's because they can get a better pinch on this, and you want to have it high, okay? So the higher you are, the more you can actually move your hand around and season the whole dish together. And so that's going to reduce your salt, because everything that you have in your foods is more likely going to have salt or sodium in that, okay? So that's a really important tip. So you can go ahead and mix all that around. Now we just made a really simple, fresh dressing, okay? And those are items that you're going to more likely have in your pantry item already. And really what's left with this dish is just waiting for this rice to be done. So we actually finished the ingredient part of it before the rice was done, which is the longer part of this, okay? But it's actually coming together that it's almost done now. So what you're going to do as a plating option, you're going to take what you have in your pan of your pot of rice, and you're going to make a bed item out of this. So you're going to put this on the bed, and then you're going to take what's in your bowl mainly, you know, spinach and everything included, and make a nice bed over your rice. And if you need a little bit more seasoning to that, yes, add some pepper. Start with some pepper first, okay? And then if you need some other items, yes, you can salt it up a little bit more, but just be mindful. Again, you know, that's one thing, but then you can add a little bit more of your dressing, some more lemon or olive oil or some of the oregano seasoning stuff, and it will give you some really nice, flavorful dish in a short period of time. So we'd love for Vincent to come back on. I don't know if we want to plink this up a little bit.
Oh, no, Jonathan, it's all fine with me, man.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So Jonathan has essentially shown you the culinary side, the chopping, and going through the main source of vegetables for our dish. Like he said, all we have to do is wait on the rice. We're ready to plate. We also have one other element. We have a lemon. All right, it's going to add a little bit of acid to your dish and give you that nice lemon flavor. Another thing is we want to go over some of the nutritional value and some of the benefits of not only eating the Medway, but of some of the things that we have here. Now, eating the Medway, it will literally, it's changed my life. It has been proven to just overall improve your lifestyle, okay? Your health. We have our lemon here. I guess I'll go ahead and kind of do some of those knife skills and getting this in slices. And you can get them as thin or as thick as you want. I just want to show a nice lemon wedge on each side of my plate. So I'll kind of cut those in half. And now that we have at least 4 to kind of put in those 4 corners, we'll push this to the side. We have our rice here. I'll go ahead and plate this for you. I'm only going to use enough to cover the plate there. I think that might be just what I have. So the good thing about cooking exactly what you need, you don't waste. And you use all of what you have. But if you don't, as Jonathan neatly highlighted, you can easily use that broccoli for another dish, or if I have more rice, I can use it for another dish. So this is brown rice, a nice, healthy, whole grain to be paired with your chickpeas or garbanzo beans. Great fiber choice with the beans, all right? And they combine in order to make a complete protein, all right? So we have our spinach here. Very good for us. You're talking about vitamin K. You're talking about nice fiber intake as far as the roughage and things like that. And then we have our broccoli. So you kind of see that around in the bowl as well. Great, believe it or not, good source of vitamin C. All right. So with all of that compared, all the tomato, you got your lycopene there, those phytochemicals, great for your health. All right. So now that we have all of that in the mix, we'll go ahead and start taking some of this, because he already has our sauce whipped up, y'all. He already has it whipped up. So we're just going to take this and put it right on top. And you could easily put this in a bowl. You could easily put this in a bowl. And this dish travels, y'all. So it travels all across cultures, all across different parts of the nation. If I wanted to, I know we grew up on pinto beans. We could take the garbanzo, put a pinto bean in there. If you grew up on black beans, you could use a black bean. If you didn't want to use broccoli and you wanted to use cauliflower, you could do that. If you wanted to introduce more like carrots or parsnips, even a sweet potato, as fibrous as it is, you could have that be the base instead of the rice. You can do a lot with this. So we're going to just smooth it out. So we get a nice plating there. I like those tomatoes, so I'll grab a few more of those and put those up there. And I have a nice, healthy plate. And then I can take these guys. Let me get that all covered up there. And just kind of place them around just like that. I have one more. And we have a nice, healthy dish. Just like that. And you guys see that all day. And you can easily make this at home. You see it didn't take us any time. All right. And you can make more. So you can double if you need to. And invite a friend. It's always good to eat in community. We encourage that when we're eating the Midway. All right. So as you enjoy your dish, please think about eating the Midway. And we thank you for tuning in and allowing us to teach you a little bit about the fruits and vegetables that we're using, the Midway, and also display some of those culinary skills to show you it's just that easy. So take it, enjoy, and tune in for next time.
Well, I think y'all got a sample of how much those two gentlemen enjoy cooking. So it really was such a treat to get to spend a little time with them. It's this time of year. It's cold. Sometimes it's really dark outside, way, way, way too early for my taste. A lot of people, what I heard from folks is they struggle with what a lot of people call the winter blues. It does have a name. It's called seasonal affective disorder. So sad. But we have a colleague, a friend of ours from AgingWell. Kim Wilson is a licensed clinical social worker. She used to work with us at the Sticht Center before starting her own clinic. But Kim is going to talk to us about really what it is, where it comes from, and most importantly, some tips that we can use to maybe lessen the effects this winter.
Hi, Deb. It's great to be a part of AgingWell. I'm looking forward to today's topic because it's something that I have experienced myself, and I know a lot of people are impacted by it. Seasonal depression, winter blues, the clinical term is seasonal affective disorder. We all have either experienced it to a certain degree or we know somebody who has. And it typically looks like feeling depressed in the winter, and then getting over it as spring, arrives. I know, like me personally, when the weather is between 65 and 75 degrees and the days are long, I just don't have a care in the world. But once winter sets in, even sometimes just the anticipation of it, I feel quite hopeless. And I know I'm not alone in that. There are a couple of beautiful things that we can say about it. One is that it is showing us how connected we are to nature, and the changing of the seasons. And the other, silver lining about it is that it doesn't last forever. It has its time limited, and we know that it's because of the changing of the seasons, and that when the seasons change, our mood will improve. So some typical things to look for are just feeling generally depressed, having a low mood, having less energy, increased cravings for carbs, and because of that, weight gain, lowered concentration, feeling more anxious, agitated, irritable, maybe sleeping more, or just feeling like even when we do sleep, we're not feeling completely rested, just having less energy in general. On the more severe end of the spectrum, it can feel like not wanting to go on living. And there's some reasons why it happens. It is showing us, again, that we're connected to nature. And so our circadian rhythms change, our serotonin levels drop because we're not getting as much sunlight, we're not getting as much vitamin D. Our melatonin levels can get kind of wonky during this time too. So there are some physiological changes in our body with the seasons. And what this means is that whatever was working well for us in the spring, summer, and fall, typically when things are going well, we kind of take our formula for well-being for granted. So it's easier to feel better. And when winter sets in, we have to be more intentional about whatever coping skills we're going to use or pull in to work to kind of tweak that formula for our well-being. I think it's also important to recognize, when we start to feel down, we often start to feel a lot of shame with it too. Like, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like, I've gone wrong here. But again, it's not necessarily that there's something wrong with you or that you've gone wrong in some way. It's just that you need to pull in different coping mechanisms during this time to maintain your well-being. So exercise is one of the best ways to do it. Moving your body, getting your heart rate up, getting your blood flowing. This is all really important for our well-being any time of year, but especially in the winter. The problem is that it's harder to get exercise in the winter. The days are shorter. The weather is less, desirable. And oftentimes, when it is dark outside, for me, the day is done. So I have fewer hours in the day to get things done, and that includes exercise. I think that because we have experts who give us expert opinions about, what's the gold standard for well-being, sometimes that gold standard actually is an impediment towards us feeling like we can have any success. So, the gold standard for exercise is 30 minutes of cardiovascular most days of the week. And it's hard to get that in, when the weather is bad and the days are short. And so I think that we have to take little wins as much as we can when we can. So, maybe you didn't get 30 minutes of cardiovascular exercise today, but you did run the vacuum cleaner, or you did carry the laundry basket, or you did go up and down the stairs several times. And then try to fit in whatever else you can when you can. Maybe you want to do some stretches and just move your body. Anything you can do to remind your body that you do have some strength and that you do have some capabilities, I think can be really invigorating. Another thing that's really important for stabilizing our mood is our diet. So of course we want to have a ton of vegetable servings and fruit, and get the right amount of protein, And that's great. Like, we do need to focus on having a healthy diet and avoiding carbs as much as possible. But if you already know you're going to be craving carbs, and you already know that it's going to be harder than normal to follow all the rules, maybe this is a time where, let's say yesterday you didn't eat any vegetables. Today you eat a vegetable. Take it as a win. Like, that's improvement. Things are better today incrementally than they were yesterday because you made this good choice for yourself. Also, I want to say anything that I mentioned today, consult with your physician before changing anything with your diet or exercise. And I also want to encourage people to consult with a therapist as well, just in terms of finding out what exactly your formula for well-being might be. It is important to get vitamin D how you can. It's also, a lot of people have found an effective use with light boxes, or boxes that like lamps that look like natural sunlight, and you can set it up maybe at your kitchen table in the morning, and that tends to help reset your circadian rhythms and can help with your mood as well. We also become more isolated during the winter months, and so it's difficult to be without our people, and it's difficult to go through our days alone. But if we're going to, first of all, make contact with people when and how you can. Maybe you're not seeing people in person as often, but just be more intentional about making contact, making a phone call, having a longer conversation with a neighbor, whatever it may be, to boost your sense of connection with others. And if you do find yourself feeling isolated, you can sort of be intentional about what that time looks like. Instead of just being isolated and just being lonely, perhaps it's a time that you can use to turn into, quiet solitude, where you have more time for reflection, or you have more time for creative work. Just be intentional with that time and make good use of it, and do something productive that brings you a sense of fulfillment. I think that traveling, if people traveled more, I don't know that I would have as many clients. I think that getting out of your house, getting out of your routine, getting away from your day-to-day responsibilities, experiencing something new, seeing new and different people, new and different environments, can really make a difference in your mood. I know that, the holidays make it difficult to travel for fun if you're visiting with family. For some people that is fun, for some people that's not. Finances are tight, COVID's still in the way, and but I would say, do a day trip, do an overnight trip, do something that doesn't feel like too much of a risk for you, but can still bring some gratification and just get you out of your day-to-day, because we can really get into a funk in the winter with monotony. There's also something about like having a panoramic view that can reset our mood, reset our nervous system. And so literally, like, being out in great expansive spaces, even if it means going for a walk where you find yourself in a field, or, ideally going to the beach and seeing the horizon. These are really good ways to reset our mood, and it reminds us again of how important it is that when we stay connected with nature, we get a lot of rewards from that. Medication can be really beneficial for people, an antidepressant or medication to help stabilize your anxiety can be quite helpful. And it may not be something that you need all of the months of the year, but if you know that you really struggle with having a low mood in the winter, it may be something that you want to speak to your physician about, getting on medication just to help you. Sometimes we go through a dark tunnel and we need just a little bit more help to get through that phase. And then when life kicks in and starts giving us those natural boosts, we may not need medication during that time. I am currently obsessed with doing cold plunges and going to the sauna. I really hate to be cold, but once I recognized the benefits of a cold plunge in icy waters, I got kind of hooked on it. It resets your mood, resets your nervous system, kind of shocks your system into just releasing endorphins that can really boost your mood. And the same with the sauna, especially in the winter. I feel like I get frozen, to the core internally. And so being in a sauna and just experiencing that extreme heat, even 5 minutes, but 5, 10, 15 minutes is really all you need to kind of reset your system, just to remind your body of the warmth. And, I mentioned as well, it can be really helpful to have a therapist during this time. I have many clients who need therapy for just phases of their life or just certain circumstances of their life, and get, some tips, learn new coping skills, or just have a space to say, hey, here's what I'm processing now, and here's how it's affecting my mood, or here's the trouble I'm having, and it can really make a difference. So best of luck to all of you making it through the rest of this winter. And I hope to see you in person someday. Thanks.
Thanks, Kim. I will tell you, I don't know that I could do the cold plunge, but that's just me. I'm a cold weather or warm weather girl. So anyway, I love hearing her very practical tips about how we all can survive these winter months better. So I'm really just tickled to get to introduce our speaker for tonight, Dr. Denise Houston. She is a PhD and a registered dietitian. She's a professor at Wake Forest at our Sticht Center for Healthy Aging and Alzheimer's Prevention. And she's going to share with us a new concept that, or maybe it's not so new, it's new to me, that does when we eat have as much to do with our health as what we eat, or how can we incorporate these? So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Houston and look forward to hearing from you.
Great. Good evening, everyone. And Deb, can you just clarify that you can see my screen full?
Yes,
Okay,
I can
great.
see it. It
Thank
looks
you.
great.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here and talk to you about how we can eat well and age well. I'm going to talk about how our eating patterns affect our health and aging. So first, I want to wish everyone a happy new year. I also want to encourage everyone to make it a healthy new year. So in preparing for this talk, I actually Googled what are the top 2023 New Year's resolutions, and they came in at move more, eat healthier, and lose weight. We're not going to spend much time talking about move more, but being physically active is part of a healthy lifestyle and is important overall for losing weight. But we're going to spend some time talking about how you can eat healthier and also lose weight if you happen to be overweight or obese. So I'm first going to touch on the dietary guidelines for Americans. The dietary guidelines are issued every 5 years. The USDA puts together a panel of scientific experts from various fields across the country, including nutrition, epidemiology, and medicine. In fact, our own Dr. Jamie Ard from our Weight Management Center here at Wake Forest was part of this dietary guideline panel. And what this panel does is they get together and they review the scientific evidence that has come out and update the guidelines for how we should eat to improve our health and meet our nutrient requirements. So there are 4 overarching themes for the dietary guidelines. The first one is following a healthy diet pattern across the lifespan to meet nutrient needs, achieve a healthy body weight, and reduce the risk of chronic disease. The second one is to customize and enjoy nutrient-dense food and beverage choices to reflect your personal preferences, your cultural traditions, and any budgetary considerations you may have. The third one is focusing on meeting food group needs with nutrient-dense foods and beverages, staying within your calorie limits. And the final one is to limit foods and beverages higher in added sugars, saturated fats, sodium, and alcoholic beverages. So when we're implementing the dietary guidelines, what we use is something called MyPlate. Some of you may remember either the 4 food groups or the My Pyramid. The My Plate has taken its place. And basically what this encourages people to do is to make half your plate fruits and vegetables, a quarter of your plate grains, a quarter of your plate protein, and also have some dairy foods as well as other beverages. The Tufts Nutrition Research Center for Aging has also come out with a My Plate that actually is tailored more to older adults. And it's very similar with the fruits and vegetables, grains and proteins making up the plate, as well as some dairy, but also focusing on the need for fluids in older adults and consuming healthy oils and adding some herbs and spices to spice up your food. So in order to meet the guidelines for fruits, we're aiming for 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day and to try to get at least half of your fruit from whole fruit. And if you drink fruit juices, to make sure that they're 100% juice. For vegetables, we're aiming for 3 to 5 servings of vegetables a day, eating a variety of vegetables from all 5 vegetable subgroups, including dark green, red and orange, beans, peas, and lentils, starchy vegetables, as well as other vegetables. To meet our grains, we are aiming for 5 to 9 ounces a day and trying to make half of the grains whole grains, like whole wheat bread, whole wheat pasta, brown rice, barley, oats, quinoa, and others. If you are going to consume refined grains, then try to choose enriched grains. For dairy, the goal is to aim for 3 cups a day. This could be 1 cup of milk or yogurt, 1.5 ounces of hard cheese, or 1/3 cup of shredded cheese, and to try to choose low-fat or fat-free dairy products. And if you're lactose intolerant, to try to use lactose-free products or small amounts of yogurt or hard cheeses. As far as meeting our protein needs, we're aiming for 5 to 7 ounces a day, and this should be from lean meat such as beef or pork, poultry without the skin preferably, seafood, beans and peas, eggs, nuts, and seeds, and to try to replace some of the meat and poultry in your diet with seafood so that you're eating seafood once or twice a week. And then finally, healthy fats. We want to keep our fat intake between 20 and 35% of our calories, but limit the percent of saturated fat to 10% or less, replacing it with liquid fats rather than the solid fats. The solid fats that are saturated fats are those that are in animal products like butter and ice cream and the marbled fat that you see in meat. So replacing those with canola or olive oil, nuts, and fish. Also limiting the cholesterol to 300 milligrams a day or up to 1 egg a day, and trying to keep trans fat as low as possible. There are also some special considerations in the dietary guidelines for older adults. The first is consuming enough protein to prevent the loss of lean mass that occurs naturally with age. The second is making sure that you're getting enough vitamin B12, as the absorption of B12 decreases with age, and certain medications can also affect absorption. So either with a supplement or making sure that you consume fortified foods such as breakfast cereals. The sensation of thirst also decreases with age, so make sure that you're drinking plenty of water and other nutrient-dense beverages to keep you hydrated, as you typically don't tend to feel that you're thirsty when you really are. Some other nutrients of concern for all adults include fiber, calcium, vitamin D, sodium, added sugars, and alcoholic beverages. So how are we doing? Now, this is data specific to those who are 60 and older. And what the chart on the left shows is how well we are doing compared to the recommended intake ranges. So the recommended intake is in the light blue bars, and our average intake for those over 60 is in the purple dots. And what we see here is that in both men and women, we're not doing so well when it comes to total vegetables, total fruits, and total dairy, where we're consuming below the recommended intake ranges. Men are consuming the recommended intake range for grains and protein, while women are not. However, neither men or women are consuming the recommended range for whole grains. We can also calculate a score to see how well we're doing compared to the dietary guidelines on My Plate, and it's called the Healthy Eating Index. This score ranges from 0 to 100, and older adults have an average score of 63. So there's definitely room for improvement. However, I will say that older adults actually have the highest score for the healthy eating index. When it comes to other foods and nutrients that we should be limiting, we're not doing so well. So we're more than 50% of both men and women are consuming too much sugar. Almost 80% are consuming too much saturated fat. And for men, at least over 90% are consuming too much sodium. So the US dietary guidelines also recommend some other healthy dietary plans, including the Mediterranean diet. And boy, did I just love that recipe that we had for the Mediterranean bowl. It just had all of these things in it. It had the garbanzo greens, it had the brown rice, it had all the different vegetables. But basically what a Mediterranean diet does is emphasize plant-based foods and healthy fats. So with a Mediterranean diet, you want to consume lots of vegetables, fruit, beans, lentils, and nuts, whole grains, use extra virgin olive oil as a source of healthy fat, consume moderate amount of fish, especially those fish that are rich in omega-3 fatty acids like salmon and tuna, moderate amounts of cheese and yogurt, preferably low fat, and little or no red or processed meat, instead choosing poultry, and also little or no sweets, sugary drinks, or butter, and moderate amounts of wine with meals if you are already consuming alcohol. And I think one of the things that the chefs also noted is it's important to try to consume these meals with other people so that you can enjoy your meals and also be active. Another diet that the dietary guidelines recommend is the DASH diet, or the dietary approaches to stop hypertension. This diet emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean protein, and low-fat dairy, which are high in blood pressure lowering nutrients like potassium, calcium, magnesium, and fiber. And it's also low in sodium and saturated fat. So what are the benefits of following these healthy eating patterns? I'm going to show you some data from several studies, but there are hundreds of studies out there, and then review some of the other benefits that I'm not going to actually show you data for. The first is data from the NIH AARP Diet and Health Study in older adults, showing the risk of mortality with each of these different eating patterns. And what we see here is that those who have the highest scores on either the healthy eating index, the Mediterranean diet, or the DASH diet have about a 20% lower risk of all-cause mortality, cardiovascular disease mortality, or cancer mortality. From the Nurses' Health Study, which is all female, and the Health Professionals Follow-Up Study, which is male, these studies are out of Harvard. This shows the effects of the diet quality based on either the healthy eating index or the Mediterranean diet. And what you see for the healthy eating index is that there's about a 20% lower risk of cardiovascular disease, heart disease, and cancer among those who have the highest scores on the healthy eating index. When it comes to the Mediterranean diet, it's about a 5% lower risk of mortality for cardiovascular disease, heart disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease. The Nurses' Health Study and Men's Health Professional Follow-Up Study also looked at the onset of new disease. So these are in people who were free of disease at baseline, where they followed them for over 30 years to see who developed diseases. And again, with both of these diets, we see benefits in that in the healthy eating index, there's about a 20% reduction in developing cardiovascular disease or coronary heart disease, and about a 10% reduction in developing stroke. For the Mediterranean diet, there's about a 10% reduction in developing all three of the diseases. And then finally, looking at diet quality and healthy aging. This is from the Nurses' Health Study only. And here they defined healthy aging as having no major chronic disease or major impairments in cognitive or physical function or mental health. And what we show here is that those people who had the highest scores on the healthy eating index and the Mediterranean diet had the highest scores on the healthy aging index. So eating healthy relates to having healthy aging. And this was over 15 years of follow-up. So in addition, we also have studies that show that following a healthy eating pattern lowers the risk of type 2 diabetes, as well as specific types of cancer like breast and colon. It lowers cardiovascular risk factors like total and LDL cholesterol, blood pressure, and blood glucose, and the risk of obesity, decreases inflammation, supports a healthy balance of gut microbiota, and may slow the decline of brain function with age. So moving on, I next want to touch on how we might want to maintain or achieve a healthy weight if you're not already at a healthy weight, since this is also something a lot of people resolve to do when they get into the new year. So as we age, adults typically gain about 1 to 2 pounds a year, and this is equivalent to only 10 to 20 extra calories a day. And so it's really important to either stay at or get to a healthy weight to help reduce the risk of several different chronic conditions, including type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, high blood cholesterol, heart disease, stroke, respiratory diseases, and some cancers and arthritis. It can also help maintain or improve physical function, which is necessary for us to stay active and keep doing the things that we enjoy. So this is data from the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey showing the prevalence of obesity in older adults dating back to the 1980s. And as you can see here, the prevalence has increased over time such that men currently have almost 40% prevalence of obesity defined as a BMI of 30 or higher, and women have about a 43% prevalence of obesity. But it's not all about weight. You can have the same height and weight and BMI and have very different body composition. So unfortunately, one of the things that happens as we age is we lose muscle and trade it for fat. So lean mass decreases after about age 20 to 30, and it can decrease by up to 40% between the ages of 20 and 70. Fat mass increases with age, with a greater relative increase in abdominal fat. And height also decreases with age. So by age 70, women tend to lose about 2 inches, while men lose about 1 inch. So what are some of the factors that contribute to overweight and obesity? First, behaviors. What you eat and your physical activity can help determine if you will gain weight or maintain your weight. And it's all about energy balance. So first, decreasing energy expenditure. As we age, our metabolism goes down. This is primarily because we're losing muscle mass. But older adults also tend to decrease their physical activity as they age. So basically, we're decreasing that one side of the energy balance equation. At the same time, people often continue to consume the same amount of calories they did when they were younger, or sometimes they increase their calories such that they are in positive energy balance and that they're eating more energy than they're expending, and that results in excess weight. Genetics can also play a role in contributing to overweight and obesity, such as playing a role in how susceptible a person is to becoming overweight or obese. Genes can also influence how the body burns calories for energy and how the body stores fat. For example, most of us notice that men tend to store fat in the abdominal area, while females store it in the buttocks, and we kind of call that either the apple or the pear shape. So what are the benefits of intentional weight loss in older adults? So I'm going to show some data from several studies that we've done here at Wake Forest. Wake Forest has done a number of weight loss studies in older adults, looking at the outcome of physical function. And this is an example of one of the recent studies called CLIP2, where individuals who were 60 and older were randomized either to weight loss by itself, weight loss with aerobic training, and weight loss with resistance training. And what you see is that in all of the groups, they lost weight. That's on the left side. But they also decreased the time it took to walk 400 meters, which is a measure of cardiorespiratory fitness. This was most evident in the 2 groups that had an exercise program combined with the weight loss. They also showed benefits of strength, and other studies have showed other physical function benefits over this time period of 6 to 18 months. Using data out of Look Ahead, which is a trial of individuals who are middle-aged and older who had type 2 diabetes that were either randomized to an intensive lifestyle intervention involving caloric restriction and a diabetes support and education group. What this study showed is that weight loss might provide a buffer against the accumulation of age-related deficits in health and functional outcomes. And so what you see here is on the left side, this is the actual weight loss that was achieved over the 8 years of the study. So this is one of the longest trials of weight loss in adults period, not just in older adults. And you can see that a lot of people had a steep decline in weight during that first year in the intervention group, the ILI group, and then they regained some of that weight, but they still had a lower weight compared to the control group. And in the right panel, that same group decreased their frailty index. So we want that to be lower. And then over time it increased, but it still stayed below the control group. We've also shown that even though weight tends to be regained over time, that these improvements in physical function might be maintained. So again, this is data from the Look Ahead study. This is going out to 12 years now. The actual trial was stopped somewhere between 9 and 11 years, depending on when people were enrolled. And so then it became an observational study. And what we showed was that those people who were in the intervention group and randomized to caloric restriction had improvements in gait speed, mobility, and lower extremity function. And this was particularly for those who were age 60 and older at baseline. We've also looked at the outcome of mortality. And this is intentional weight loss again, because a lot of observational studies show that weight loss might increase mortality. This is usually because it's a mix of intentional and unintentional weight loss, and unintentional weight loss from any kind of disease or other chronic condition is almost always bad. So this was a meta-analysis that Dr. Krzyzewski here at Wake Forest conducted. And overall, it found that those people who were randomized to caloric restriction had about a 15% reduction in mortality compared to those who were not. So in general, what we see is that intentional weight loss improves cardiovascular risk factors, chronic conditions, and physical function. I showed you some data on physical function. It also reduces inflammation, diabetes symptoms and risk factors, and arthritis and pain symptoms. However, most of the studies are over the short term, 6 to 18 months. So how do we manage overweight and obesity? We want to aim for a healthy weight, and we want to do that by losing weight gradually at about a rate of 1/2 to 2 pounds a week. And so what we typically recommend is reducing calories by 500 to 750 a day, but not going below 1,100 calories in women or 1,300 calories in men, and doing this while consuming nutrient-dense foods. We also encourage people to be physically active while they're trying to lose weight. This doesn't actually help you lose the weight, but it helps you maintain the weight that you do lose. And that you can use a variety of different dietary approaches to get to weight loss. You just need to reduce your calories. So any of the eating patterns that I showed earlier, the US Dietary Guidelines, the Mediterranean diet, the DASH diet, can all be combined with a caloric restriction. And even as small as a 5 or 10% weight loss can significantly improve one's health and quality of life. So I'm moving on to intermittent fasting. What is it? This is what Deb alluded to in the beginning. We've talked a lot about what we eat, but what intermittent fasting is about when you eat. So the diet patterns I showed you earlier were all about what we're eating. Now we're going to talk about when you eat. And this kind of really came out of our history, in that when we were several thousand years ago, when we were hunters and gatherers, basically people scrounged for food. They ate what they could find when they found it, and then they went for intervals where they were fasting and not eating food. So there are basically 3 different types of intermittent fasting that have received the most attention. The first one is alternate day fasting, where you fast one day and feast the next, and then fast one day and feast the next. And even on the fast day, you typically do consume some calories. The next one is called the 5 to 2 diet. This is where you fast for 2 days of the week, and then you eat for the other 5 days a week as you would do normally. And again, even on that fasting day, you're typically consuming some calories. So you might eat one meal a day. And then the final type of intermittent fasting is called time-restricted eating. This is when you eat every day, but you only eat within certain hours of the day. So for example, you eat within an 8-hour period, and then you fast for the other 16 hours. So how does intermittent fasting work? Well, because you're not eating in these times that you're fasting, it often results in reduced caloric intake. So that's one of the things that compares it to caloric restriction. What it does also is it triggers the body to switch its source of energy from glucose, which is stored in the liver, to ketones, which are stored in the fat. And this ketogenesis initiates activity in a variety of cellular signaling pathways, which are known to influence health and aging. And these pathways enhance the body's defense against oxidative and metabolic stress and initiate the removal and repair of damaged molecules in the body. So this is a schematic of reported benefits of intermittent fasting from the studies that are in the literature. And the items that have an asterisk by them have only actually been studied in animal models and not in humans. But as this shows, in the brain, they've shown some improved cognition among people who follow intermittent fasting, a reduced blood pressure and heart rate. In the blood, we have reduced glucose and insulin levels and reduced inflammation. In the muscle, we see increased insulin sensitivity, which is important for those who have diabetes, as well as reduced inflammation. What I will say with all of these studies is they're typically short term. Most studies are at the most 12 weeks long. So we really don't know the long-term effects of intermittent fasting. And most studies have been carried out in young and middle-aged adults. In fact, there's only one study that I know of that has been carried out in adults who are age 65 or older. And looking at it another way, these are specific to the different types of fasting that you might do. With alternate day fasting, some of the health benefits that have been shown have been a decrease in body weight and blood pressure, as well as a decrease in cholesterol and triglycerides, and insulin and insulin resistance. Those same benefits are observed in the 5-2 diet. However, in the time-restricted eating, we don't see as many benefits as far as cholesterol and triglycerides, but we do see decreases in oxidative stress. So with that, I just want to let you know about a study that Wake Forest has started conducting called the HALO study. Here we are looking to evaluate the potential benefits of the 2 different diet interventions over a 9-month period. So 9 months is a lot longer than these 12-week studies that have been reported so far. The 2 different diets are caloric restriction using a healthy diet pattern, or the time-restricted eating, where all the meals and snacks are eaten within an 8-hour window. And to be eligible, you have to be over 60 and overweight, and you can't have type 1 diabetes, uncontrolled type 2 diabetes, or take insulin. And so that study is just up and going. We'll probably be recruiting for another 1.5 years. And it's a very important study to kind of determine what the effects of this diet might be in an older population. And so with that, I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you, Dr. Houston. I really appreciated learning so much of that. You know, so much as we've learned maybe in our youth throughout our life, but it's nice to be reminded of some of these very basic principles. We have already had a question come in from one of our participants. I've heard people say that peanut butter is good for you because it has protein. True or false?
True, but peanut butter is actually good for you because it does have protein, and specifically it has leucine, which is one of the amino acids that is actually a good amino acid for building muscle. However, it also has a good bit of fat. So while eating peanut butter is good, we still need to consider doing it in moderation.
Okay. Another question, struggling with sugar craving. What do we do? I think maybe everybody can jump on that bandwagon.
Yeah, so I think, thinking about things that you can use as an alternative sugar, so fruits, then the natural sugars in fruits don't really count towards that added sugar. So thinking about, trading some of your cookies, desserts, those types of things for fruit instead. Also, just not having some of those items in the home. I think, for me, that's one of my tricks is I try not to have items that tempt me in the house so that I can't go reach for it when I do have those cravings.
So another question is eating meals later in the day bad for you?
Well, that kind of depends. It depends on what you're eating first and what you're doing. Some of the time-restricted eating studies have shown that starting that eating window earlier in the day, so like at 8 o'clock, so going from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock, so 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., has more benefits than maybe starting that eating window at 12 p.m. and going to 8 p.m., suggesting that there is some benefit to kind of shifting our meals earlier in the day. But that said, these are all very short-term studies of only about 12 weeks.
Okay. So how much weight is considered to be overweight?
So typically we use the body mass index or BMI to determine if someone is overweight or not. In all adults, we typically use a cutoff of 25. However, we're a little more conservative when it comes to older adults, and we typically look at a BMI of 27 or higher as being someone who may need to lose weight, particularly if they have any other chronic conditions like diabetes or heart disease or hypertension.
So in the Hallow diet, are you limiting the total energy in time restricted to? Great talk.
No, we are not intentionally anyway. So we are hoping that, those who are in the time restricted eating will still eat a healthy diet. But what tends to happen, because you're restricted to a limited time interval, people do tend to eat fewer calories because, they have to eat everything within that 8 hours. And so they're not able to snack, like they might snack in the evenings. So the idea is that you're not calorie restricted, but we are trying to make sure that you are eating a healthy diet pattern while you're doing that diet, but just within those hours of the day. And you get to select which hours you would like to do your time restricted eating in.
Okay. That was another question. So you can choose your 8 hours.
You can choose your 8 hours. We recognize that different people have different schedules and different types of commitments. And, this is something that if we're going to ask people to do it for 9 months, try to be realistic about, how we can incorporate that into someone's lifestyle.
Well, Dr. Houston, you covered the questions.
Great.
And I'm so thankful. Thank you so much for helping us get 2023 off to a very healthy start. So I'm going to remember this. I'm going to remember it very deeply. So again, I'm so grateful, and I'm thankful to all the folks who joined us tonight, our AgingWell team, of course, and most especially you. You could spend your second Tuesday anywhere, but you chose to spend it with us. So thank you so much. And we will see you next month. Actually, next month, we're going to be spending a little bit of our Valentine's Day together. So Dr. Houston, we'll all have healthy treats, maybe that we can share on our Valentine Aging Well. So until then, we'll see ya.